because there have been a war of words between the Pope and the United States President in that now deleted post, where in his latest statement, the Pope has criticized the leaders who spent billions of dollars on wars and saying that being ravaged by a handful of tyrants in an unusually forceful comments during a visit to Cameroon, where he says that the masters of war turn a blind eye to the fact that billions of dollars are spent on killing, on devastation, and yet the resources are needed for healing, for education, and for restoration that seems to be nowhere to be found. Now, this seems to be Pope's statement there because he's now questioning the priorities of the world leaders. Is it about holding power? Is it about playing also the role of a peacemaker? Let's in the meantime also talk about what President Trump has been saying, because he's hit back and what he now says that the Pope must understand what the Iranian threat is, because he believes that the Pope doesn't understand geopolitical situation and he's not aware of the ground reality, because Trump wants to make the Pope aware that Iran itself has killed its own people, thousands of them unarmed protesters. And he says that I have nothing against the Pope, but he must understand that the world is a very nasty place. Let's listen into what President Trump has said. Well, he's now been saying that Pope does not live in this real world and he believes that it is a nasty world, but he wants to make the Pope aware of how dangerous the situation will turn if Iran is actually armed with a nuclear weapon. And according to President Trump, they are actually doing this for world peace, because Iran without a nuclear weapon is something that what the US wants, and not just the US, is something that President Trump claims that the entire world wants. However, Pope is of the opinion that war is nothing but destruction and devastation. And when it comes to the world leaders, they must rather strive for peace than war.
Those criticize people who manipulate religion for political or military gain. Do you think that he's talking about you, sir?
Very important that the Pope understands. Very, very important. It's nice not to say it. Iran killed 42,000 people that were totally innocuous protesters. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they did, every country, including Italy, where he's stationed, every single country in the world would be in trouble. So we're doing very well with respect to that, having to do with the whole situation on Iran. The blockade is amazing.
Well, Srinjoy, I mean, is this even, a place needed to stress as far as when it comes to priorities of both sides is concerned? Obviously, the Pope will talk for peace, but President Trump's priorities are completely different.
First of all, about a fifth of America is Catholic. And how they will interpret this continuing battle between the Pope and the President really will be known when the midterm elections come around in November. Because I believe that every Catholic would be a little miffed when he hears the President criticizing the Pope. And very rarely is the Pope criticized. One memorable moment was all the way back in the 40s, when in the middle of the World War, when Joseph Stalin privately asked Winston Churchill, how many divisions? A division is a group of soldiers of about 20,000 men. How many divisions does the Pope have? Now, there hasn't been a statement like that in a long time. And President Trump's statements have been a little surprising and difficult to accept for Catholics. And that is the problem here.
Yes.
Because when you take on the Pope,
yes,
who hasn't made any, who hasn't really made a statement criticizing Trump, all he has said in the Cameroons is that, look here, all this money is being spent on war.
Yes.
It can be spent on health, it can be spent on education, it can be spent on welfare, things like that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. What he has said is actually right.
Yes. Well, obviously, the Pope will advocate advocate for peace, but however, we'll see exactly when it comes to how favorable or unfavorable that the masses of the United States will find what their president, whom they have chosen, would be talking about the Pope and about war and devastation. Please do stay on with us, Shvindra, because now we're going to focus on the India point of view here.